Okay, good morning, everyone. So the today's I'm going to continue with what we have covered last time. We were discussing the basics of PHP, and plan for today's I'll be covering what we have stopped last time, and then we also going to discuss the PHP on databases particularly. So first of all, if you go through what we have done so far, basics things we have discussed. One of the new addition I put is how exactly PHP processing happens as stages. You know that whenever you request a particular URL, then you look up the IP and then you request the main page. And then if that receive request comes in through the web server, then you fetch the page. And if there are PHP commands, and then it will process it using PHP processor. And then if there are any execute commands, then it goes to the database and back in the processor, and then find into the web server, and then back into the web browser of the client. So just to give you like how PHP processing happens. Then next things, actually we discuss the basics, the variables, how to create variables, and then also like keep records of different data types, as well as arrays we also briefly discussed. And then we also discussed the operators we had, arithmetic operators, assignment operators, as well as comparison operators, and finally logical operators. And then we also discussed the variable assignment, string concatenation. So many of the things you will see the dot here, we can use it's a string concatenation there. And then we also look at how we use the escape characters. This is the place where we have stopped last time. Okay, so today I will start with the constants, especially in the program when you want to define a particular value that might not change in execution. We can use constants. A couple of things you need to remember. One thing is you can define this variable or the constant value using define function. So usually you see define and then the variable like this, and then the particular value, and then when you assign to that constant value to another variable, then remember that we will not use the dollar mark, right? So the dollar mark we will not use when we are defining the constants, right? No dollar mark when we work with the constant value. So one thing you need to remember. And then that's the previous slide. What we have discussed is how you may create constant in your own, and then there are already defined constants are there. Now sometimes this is known as magic constants. Now for example, if you use note that here we have two underscores. So if you have underscore underscore line underscore underscore, which means the current line number of the file. And if you want to get the full path and the file name, then we will use underscore underscore file underscore underscore. So likewise, you can get the directory, you can get the function name, you can get the class name, you can get the method name, and even you can use the namespace, right? So all these are, case sensitive. So make sure that you make careful when you use this, right? Now I think what we have discussed so far, we have used echo command, and I think for the same purpose we can use print function as well. But there's a difference if you compare with the echo and the print. Usually print, you will have a return value, right? So echo is, we can say it's a PHP language construct which comes with you find it in the PHP only. But the print is actually derived from the other languages lookalike. But both of them are known as constructs, so you don't have to put parentheses. You can just use them. So if you look at efficiency of the two commands, usually echo preferred because there's no return value there, but print, since there's a return value, so there's a delay usually when you compare the echo one, right? And sometimes when we use this way of representing the example given, like more complex expressions, especially when you use magic operators, so you will not be able to use echo command. So in those cases you may have to work with the print statement. Okay, next one is function similar to what we have learned in the other programming languages. So in this one, actually return a date for a particular format given here. So that's what you will see. To get the format as the day and then the month and the date as well as the year. So this will be could be used here. So we define the function keyword and with the name and then any parameters. So in this case, we are taking as a one parameter timestamp, and then the function will return date function with a specific format, right? Whatever the timestamp given there, you will put it here, right? So for example, when you want to call it, if you want to get the today's date, yes, you can actually put this, right? So maybe I can quickly work out this in PHP. So in this one switch statement, we depend on the different values here. You are going to get different statements. Now, for example, if the value of page is home, then you are going to select this one, this statement. If it is a value of page is about, then you are going to select this one. Yes, there's a question from Vikum with there's no default value, just true, because sometimes it might be necessary you are going to have only those values, or else yes, as you said, you can use a default value to come out of some value. So, but I think that's some way you are going to handle this. Thanks for pointing out that. For the simplicity, actually, I have not put that value. So here we have different values, you will get different outputs. And remember, you have to have the break statement, which I will explain again here, right? So if I go back, we will have what? We have these two. And then let me share my whole screen. So what I told you is when we have, let's say, home, and if you refresh it, you will see it will select this line because the value is equal to home. Because of that, it will execute this one. And then let's say the value is login. Just save it, refresh it. Then you go to login. Sorry. And then other one is you have to have the break statement. If you remove, break from here, right? If you remove like this, what will happen? Then it will print two lines because it won't break here. It will execute this one as well as this one, right? So make a note here, the break is very important. Otherwise, it will, sorry, display the other lines as well. Right? We have saved. Okay, so we have this. Okay, so let's move to the next one. So we'll move to the next one. We will go back to the slide. Okay, the next one is actually so the next one, let me share the screen first. So this ternary operator, what we call compact ternary operator, especially when you have if and else statements, and if you have only if and else, you can actually put into a compact form like this. Now this is to say that if fuel is less than or equal to 1, then we are going to say, okay, fill tank now. Otherwise, we will going to say there's enough fuel, right? So instead of that, we can directly put the fuel. So this is the condition, and we put the ternary operator, the value we want to assign if it is true, the value we want to assign if it is false with the colon. Now, for example, here we have a check enough less than or equal to 1, then it's false. That means this variable will get the value of false, or else it will get value of true, right? Let me quickly show you that one as well. So let me share the screen again. So here is what I have. So I'm going to take out this. Right. Right, this is how it looked like. Let me remove for the time being. So what happens here? So this is similar to this one. So usually we will put it like this. We have if $fuel less than or equal to 1, then we are going to say echo fill tank now. Yes. Else we are going to say echo there's enough fuel. Right? So let's say the values, let me finish this. Hope I have not made any mistakes. Let me put $fuel as so fuel as 1. Yes. So hopefully we should get fill tank now.
So there's an additional brace clause after else. It should be removed.
After else, yes. I missed one here. Thanks. There's another error somewhere else. So let me quickly go through.
So if a statement have to a
Brackets.
condition have yes, sir, bracket.
We have to have brackets.
Condition has the bracket.
Yes, thanks. So we have to have brackets here. So that's I missed. Yes, thanks. And then when I refresh it, we'll take fill tag now. Right now, similar thing we can put into a short form using ternary operator. So there, what we do, we will start with echo directly. Echo directly, and then the condition we put full if it is less than or equal to 1. Yes, then the ternary operator, then fill tank now, then we have colon, then we have say there's enough full, right. See whether I have made any mistake here as well. Save, refresh, we'll get the same. So let me put 2. There's enough full, right? So what happens here basically, we will use echo to work on these two. So this is the condition and these are the two values. So for the simple statement, you can write compact code like this. Now at the same time, the assignment. Now, for example, in this one, let's say I want to assign this to the output. So I can just say, okay, message equals, we can put in the same way. And then if you say echo message later on, it should display the answer. Yes. So let me put 1. So we'll get the same answer, right? What has happened is I actually put this part. What will happen whenever this is less than 1, this value is assigned to this. Otherwise, this is going to assign message. So this is exactly what has happened in here. Full is 1, which means it belongs here. So fill tank by now assign this one, and then it will display it here. Right. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. One more thing, if you look at yes, if you look at, for example, the binary operator. So there's a binary, what we call earlier, what we said was ternary operator. We can have binary operator as well. So in binary, we can actually make use of 2. Now, for example, you check some value. If it is whether it's needs to A or B, then you can use a binary. We sometimes call Elvis operator as well. So that is also we can make use of this. Right, now let's move on to the next slide. Right, next one. The loops, right? Again, like in other places, it will be similar. The loops we can have, this is example for while loop. So basically, it'll print what here. We have count is 1. We have change of the count here. We check whether the count is less than or equal to 12. So if that is the case, you are going to display this, and then count is increased by 1, right? So times 12 is, that is actually multiplication table for 12. So you multiply that by 12 and you get the answer, right? So for example, when count is 1, you check whether 1 is less than or equal to 12. Yes. Then it says 1 times 12 is 1 into 12. So we will get 12 as the output, right? So after that, you increase count by 1. Plus dollar count is actually increase the count by 1, right? And for loops, I hope you are familiar with the syntax with the other languages, so I'm not going to go into details, but if you feel that you need me to explain, please let me know in the chat, so I will demonstrate that one. Right. So here what will happen, the same thing, but all the 3 things we put here. So when you take a loop, you have 3 important places to look at. That means the starting point, and then increment or decrement, and also the condition part. So all these 3 in the same place in the for loop. So here I start is with 1, and this is goes until less than or equal to 12, and then you increase the count. So you will get the same result, right? And right. Let's move to the next one, functions and objects. Now functions we have already look at earlier. Now for example, we discuss long date format, and a particular function you are going to execute, particular specific work could be done with the function. So involved is less typing, and then it will reduce the syntax and errors, and decrease in the loading time for program files. So there are advantages when you define as functions. Now if you take the objects, then you will have 1 or more functions. When it comes to objects, you define an object, and then so object may contain more functions, right? So all the data and the functions we put into one structure, and we call it a class. So if you have done object orientation, this is exactly what we are going to discuss, right? So the functions we already discussed function, and then you have function name, and then put the parameters, and then functions with the return values. So within the function you define something, and then we will have some return values. So first one is without we have not defined a return, so this is returning value, and this one is returning an array. So especially when you want to send multiple values, now here also we have multiple values. So for example, here what will happen, you actually combine the 3 results together, right? Concatenate the values, and then you return as a 1 unit. And the same way you can use arrays to put everything together, right? But this time it will actually define it an array. So later on when you receive, you can, if you want, you can access the value separately, right? Okay. So let's see how this will work, and what exactly we are trying to do here is trying to fix in the names. So let me demonstrate with the code. So let's go back. So let me share. Okay. and then so we have the function which actually written in values. So let me start with this one. So I will first of all copy this. Before returning an array, I would like to put them in the previous one. Let's work out the previous one, and after that we'll work out this one, right? So let me first copy the previous one. So what actually really happens here, there are some names you will see, right? So there are some names: William, all capital, then Henry, all simple, and then the mixed one. So we are trying to fix it. What actually happens within this is you first convert all the characters in the lowercase. So string to lower means lowercase. For example, let me put this. Let me comment out this. And then let me just say, okay. We will put it like this. So let's say message web technologies, and then let's say you are going to convert into echo $message dot br and echo, I'm going to say str to lower. This function actually get the message and then convert into the lowercase. Right. So if I run this, let's run this and observe the output. Just forget about this. Let me cut it down so it will not confuse you. Right. This is what I'm going to explain. So what will happen here? We have a message, web technologies, and then we just display the message. We put a BR here, concatenate, combine the two so that it will go to the next line, and then string to lower. So you see that the first one, web technologies, and the second one, web technologies in the capital, right? So it's in capital. Right, then the next one is let me go to the code. So let me type again this echo str to upper. You see first. So we have this one. So when I refresh it, you will see what happens. Now the first one is, this is what I have typed. Everything is lowercase, right? Everything is in uppercase, and the first one is uppercase first, so that you know, we will get back the same thing here. There's no change. So the values given to us is this. We have fixed values, William, Henry, and Gates, and then we are trying to change this, right? So let me get that one now. So let me put the values here now. So what happens, here have a function, we have 3 parameters, n1, n2, n3. And whatever we'll get n1, n2, n3, you are going to apply string to lower. That means it convert the values to lowercase and then uppercase first. So that W will be capital and all the others are simple. So likewise, second one also, it will be lowercase, and when you say UC first, then it will be capital H. Gates, you see why we are actually first lowering, because here we have capital letters at the end. So first of all, you put everything into lowercase and then you are going to make it uppercase. And finally, you return the string, right, by concatenating that. That will part come here and then it will display, right? So when I save, we refresh. So we are getting William, Henry, and Gates, correctly. Okay, next code, you will get the same answer, right? So if you go to the next one, you will get the same answer, but it uses the make use of arrays, right? So if I go back to the code again, we will change here to the next code. So what happens, it will be the same one here, but only difference is you are putting into an array, n1, n2, n3, creating arrays we have discussed earlier. So that means we put 3 values in a single array. So that arrays comes here, and then each individual element we access, combine like earlier, right? 0, 1, 2, because we have 3, and we should get the same result. So when you say save, refresh, we'll be getting the same answer. Right, so let's move on to the next one. Right, next one is passing value to a function by referencing it. Now you know that pass by value and then pass by reference, the two things. So in this particular case, we will use the references. Here we have A1, and then we have A2, and then we have A3. So A1, A2, A3, we call fixed names, right? Fixed names. So that means you don't have to pass it back again, because it says the pass by reference. That values are, reference in the original locations, not the copies of this. So the idea there is when you call a function, so whatever the variable we use within the function will be local, right? But when you are put into references, right, actually you are going to access the original variables. We are going to refer to William, Henry, and Gates and directly changing. So there's no change of here, so there's no return as such. But since you are referring, usually it's the memory addresses, right? So that you directly access those information. So directly, N1 is accessing the values of A1, change the value you referred to back, and same way in 2 is to A2, and in 3 is to A3, and so on, right? Okay, then again, returning global. Now I told you, like when we have the values, usually we will have local. I told you local means if you have a within the function, it will not appear to the out of the function. That's why we say it's local. But if you want to like make it a global, right, you can use the term global here. Now when you say global, this A1 and this A1 will be the same. So that means this A1 will be visible to the outside, right? So we will get the same answer here as well, but with the use of global variable. So remember that you can actually use various ways, and then you can make use of one technique. Right. So the next one is especially when you have a common code and you want to, include it in all the files. Like the next thing we are going to look at is, accessing database using PHP. But you know that MySQL, for example, MySQL is a server base. That means you have to have log information. So the logging information you have to put in everywhere. Now we won't do this. Instead, we will, create the login details at one place, and then we use include or include once, right? The difference is, when you say access the same file again at later on, if it have include, then it will be, ignored. Right. Then there are two things we have, including and what we call requiring. Now, once we have with the problem we will have with the include one is you are going to only load it into that requested one, and then let's say it's not found, then it's ignored it continue to work in the file. But if it is compulsory, essential, then instead of include, you should define it as require. So the difference between include library and require is include library, if the file is there, it will include it. Otherwise, it will continue with the remaining content. But if you have a require, then it will accept with an error saying that it's not there. Okay. Now let's move to the PHP objects, right? So let's say to explain PHP object, let's think about a simple example. Let's say we have a social networking site, right? So that means you have to handle many users. Users might able to sign in, and then whoever they are that modify their details and so on. So the way that we have discussed so far is we'll have few functions to handle this, right? And then some calls to MySQL database to keep track of the users. In objects, we create what we call the class. Then all the codes we put in the inside this class and the variables manipulating data, everything we put in a single place. So whenever you want to manipulate some data, you just create an object. So in a complex situation, it's always better, you use objects. Right. So here is a basic, template for the class in PHP. So we have class user, and these are the attributes. We say public name and password. And then within the user, we are going to save save user. So that code comes here, right? Only two things will happen, right? So whenever you create new user, right? So it's object of the user, and then you can look at the details by using print r. So let's try this. So let me share this. Let me my code window, and then yes, I'll be sharing the two. Okay, so I'll go to the class. So we will creating a class here, class for user, and we are just creating a user. We will not assign any values here, but actually we could put name and password, right? So let's run this. So let me refresh it. So we have an object. We have actually printed the object details. The name is null. There's no name we specified. There's no password. Okay. Now let's create a user with a particular name, right? So I'm going to put some name and some password, right? So then we will say new user. Within bracket we can put new user. Now within bracket, let me create another object. One. So this time I'm going to create new user, but with values. So let's say I put some path, and then let's say password ABC123, and then I'll print this and print R. There's a space here, so that might be the reason. Yes. Okay. So two things we have done this. First of all, we create a user without any parameters. The second one, we actually create a user with the parameters. Right. Now let's look at how you're going to access or the details. Now one thing is we could put these values. Now for example here, this is the same thing earlier. We have the user code, and then we actually specifying the names, the object. We assign the value name, that is Joe, and the object password, my password, and then we will print the object, and then we will put the save user, which means you are calling this one, right? So the first one, we assign in the values to the object name, and then we'll assign to value. So let's see how this will work. Now, next one, I will share again my code. We have this, and then this one I'll be sharing, and then let's take the accessing objects. So we will get the values. We have these values. Right. Now I will keep these two as like this. So let me put some echo. Let me say right. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to assign values. So here the first one, you will see now the value side here. So I'm going to assign the values. So I can say dollar object, right? Then we can say the name is let's say Sampath. So we'll remove this one. We can remove this one. We'll assign separately. So I will assign my name, and then we have password. That is, let's say, so we will discuss in the security. We are not going to plain, assign values like this. If you had to use some encryption algorithms like MD5 or SHA, so depend on your requirement. Now I'm going to put the 2 lines again. So this time, the second time we are printing the object. What has happened, the same thing. So you see, I have to save first. Let me refresh. Okay. Now in previous one, we didn't have any values assigned. Now this time you see the object, you will see the outputs. The values are there. Right. The next one, how do you access the method? Now in here, I told you can have multiple class values. So in this case, I'm going to access save user. To access the method, we can say, okay, dollar object. And then we can say, okay, save user. So in that way, what will happen? So you are going to access within the object, you are going to access this method. So it says the save user code goes here. So when you refresh it, you will get save user code goes here. Right. So what we have discussed is how to create a class and then create an object, and then you access the values. So let's move on to the next one. Let's look at different types of arrays available, because it's important for us to understand. Because when you take the data, especially from database MySQL, we need to put into arrays. right? So mainly we manipulate arrays to access this. So the first one we are going to look at adding items to an array. So let's we have paper, and this is empty in the beginning, and you keep on adding values. So first of all, what will happen? It's empty in the beginning, but whenever you value is assigning, so empty location you store that value, right? And then pointer will kick to the next free location. So there. So for that you put that value. Then you add another one. Yes, what will happen? You again create a free location, and then you assign this value. Then again you have a point to the free location. So you keep on doing this. So this is what we use for index arrays. Right. Now you can define where exactly you want to store, right? Consecutively, if you want to put, instead of empty, right, you can put the value 0, 1, 2, 3, right? So similarly, you will see, you can actually see how we actually stored here. And the next one is how to access those. We know that the for loop is easier because we have exactly 4 items here. That means the index goes from 0 to 3, less than 4, right? And then you are going to print this. Next one is, this is numerical indexes. That means you have some numerical value to access each of these elements. But the next one is associative, which means instead of number, you have a value. We have some name here. So you can access item by a name, right? So for example, earlier we had paper 0, paper 1, paper 2, paper 3, and so on. Now we will have paper copier, paper inkjet, paper laser, paper photo, and so on. So then whenever you want to access it, you can just say echo, and then we can put the name, right? So it's easier. You don't have to memorize. It's very easy when you want to access data. Right. Okay, so I think the first two one we will discuss. I hope if you are new to this, so you might have difficulties to understand. So let's start with looking at the possibilities. So let me share my code environment. We have the file as well as, yes, I'm shared. Now it's shared. We will go to the code. In this one, we are going to look at numerical index ones. So basically we have the values. So let's put it here. So let me save, and then let me run. So what happens, it will create an indexed array with these 4 values. Yes, we have copier, in 0, inkjet, we have laser, and photo. Yes, that's there. Now, if you want to put this value, you can put the order. Now, for example, you can put 0, you can put 2, you can put 1, you can put 3, the way you want. Order doesn't matter, right? In that way, yes, you will see how it's stored, right? So whenever you want to access it, you can access in for loop, right? So this is not very important. Usually we don't actually access it like this. So using a for loop, we can say what we want to do. So we can say for, we can say, let's say $I equals 0, and then $I less than, let's say, 4, and then plus plus $I. So that's the loop. And then we can say echo, right? Before that, let me put in this way. Now let's say you have this, which means if you want to access the first element, you can say, okay, echo $paper 0, right? So if I do this, let's see what will happen. Yes. So earlier we have put this. So let me put echo here as well. Yes. So the copy is there. Let me put 2 BRs so that it's visible. Yes, copy like this. Then we have echo $paper 0. We have copier, right? So likewise, let me put dot BR, and then we'll copy the same thing again. So we can put it in this way. So that's the first one. This is the second item, third item, and fourth item. Let me save it, refresh it. Oh, sorry, it should be 3. Yes, we get the values like this. But instead of this, we can have a shorter code, shorter way to do this, right? We can just write one statement. We can write one statement with the for loop. We can just say echo $paper. Inside that we can put $I, and then we can have BR as well. So if I put this, so you see that we will get the same answer, but you see you don't have to write for statement like this. Okay, so that is indexed arrays. So whenever we manipulate the data, we will see that we have to manipulate this, right? We can work on this. Okay, next one, we will also look at associative arrays. The difference is now, remember here, we use numbers to access each of the individual elements. Now then we can use a named, right? Sometimes we can say it's a named arrays. Right. So let me first of all look at the next one, that is associative arrays. Now I told you, like earlier, now when we put it, so let me take the code. Now earlier we have like this, so I will remove these parts. Let me put this. Now instead of that, we are going to have name and we have a detailed one, right? Let me remove this one. Earlier we had just the numbers. Now here we have named arrays, which means, right? So for example, print R. I hope we can get this. Yes. If you look at this, it will create an array object, but each of these we have the key values. These are the keys where we can access the value. Now to access the value, let me put echo. To access each individual animal, we have to call, like in previous echo, $paper. Instead of 0, we have to put the value. So let's say laser. So hopefully we are getting laser printer. So remember that this is very, very useful, especially when you want to manipulate data. So that means under single name, we have 4 items, and all the 4 items we will access with a name instead of just numbers. So it's more easier you to access the data. Right. I think now we can go to the next one. Shall we have a quick 5 minutes break? And then I'll back. Now 11:06, 11, because I'm going to stop at 11:30. So just 5 minutes. So then let's look at use of array keyword. Now array, remember we use different elements. Now when we say here, we use array object, and we will put the 4 values here, right? And then we can say P1 element and P1 2, right? You can say that is the laser, because this is 0, 1, 2, usually we'll get out. Now, if you put this into an array, right, using array object, same way you can use it the earlier we wrote separate values, but this is in one. So we can put everything under, array, and then we comma separate it so that you can, access it very easily, right? Inkjet, you get this, right? So this is your extension of what we have discussed earlier. Instead of defining the value separately, you can use, array keyword. So this is more, faster compared to the previous one, and more compact as well, right? So if you will finish the discussion, and then we'll get to, I will show you like the working of this one. Then working through numeric array using for each as. Now earlier in a numerical array, we use a for loop, and then we have where we had some variable. In our case, we put I to name the index value. Now here what will happen, so we will take this as item by item. So each of the paper, for each item in paper array, take it as item, and then you are going to display it. So that's what you are going to do. The first one, second one, third one, and fourth one, and so on, right? So this time you don't have to access this. You don't have to access any other variables, although here we just to name it, I will show you like you can just say $item. So it's easier to work with, whenever you have arrays like this, right? Now, instead of a for loop, or you just put the name, you can use a for each. For each is very easy. You don't have to use, index or maintain index and so on, right? And similarly, if you have associative array using for each, again it will be similar, right? Uh, then paper, you have each item, we have two tabs. That means we have item as well as we have description. So that you can just use item because you label this as an item and this is as a description, right? So then it'll give you the idea like what are the indexes you have used. We have used name index, but you see that this is very, very compact compared to how to access it. I mean, for loops we unable to use in accessing the associative arrays anyway, the difficult. Then use of lists, right? So in this one, what you see is the same associative array. This one we are using each and then the list, right? So each paper, that means you are going to get each item of paper. So that's what you do. And then you are going to put into a list of item and the description, right? And then each of these values will be assigned to this one is the item and this is as a description. So the use of each and the list, right? Okay, I think we can access and we can finish for today then after finishing this one, right? So let's go back. This is where we have stopped use of arrays. Let me change the sharing. Okay, so this is what we have. Now remember earlier, we actually put the values one after the other, and it was not that easy, like you have to put extra information when you are going to put it like this. Now what we are trying to do here, we are going to get this, and instead of that we are going to use array key. Now what is array key here? So instead of putting everything together, we will put, now if you remember what we did earlier, let me just put both of this, compare both ways so that it will be more clearer to you. So in previous case, what we had is we just had the values, right? So we put it in this form. Let me share. So let's combine this. Let's put it here. This is what we had earlier, right? This is what we had. We had paper. You assign this. This is what we will use to create numerical index, right? Now, instead of that, what we are going to do is we are going to use an array. So instead of this, right, let me put, if I match with the whatever the code. So if you want to print something, like we have to say, okay, echo, you have to say, okay, dollar paper, let's say 2, yes, and dot, no, you don't have the quotes here. You can say just $paper, let's say 2.br. You know why we are putting br, right? Okay, so this is one way to do this, and if you do this, you will get this result. It's lesser. Now instead of that, I can put this form. I can say, okay, $p1, this is what I have given in the code array. You just put the values. We have copier, we have inkjet, we have laser, we have photo. Yes, you can just say the same thing, echo $paper, sorry, p1, we can put 2, yes, and we can see the result. It will be the same. So instead of putting one item at a time like this, it will be more compact, right? When you use an array form. Okay, so that's what I would like to discuss. The next one, the next thing I want to discuss is associative arrays. Associative means instead of numerical values, we are going to make use of a named index. So in this way, we will have, this is what we will put in earlier. So let me share. Right. So that's what we have. So this is without array, and this is with array. Right. Again, like in named associative, with array, without array. So what will happen in without array? So we will put it in this form. We will have names like this. And then whenever you want to print out, let me put dot here, br, let me have 2br so that you have more spaces in between. Let me echo it, echo $paper. Now this time I have to put as a laser, isn't it? Yes. When I save, let me put dot. We'll get in the same, but with the space, it says laser printer. So this is how we will X. So when you want to work with the array object, so this is how you should put it, right? So in that way, with array, this is how you are going to define it. Yes, you are going to define it with array, and then you can access the same way. So you can say echo $paper laser. Okay, so I think I made a mistake somewhere. It should be P2.
Echo, sir.
Yes, echo, and it should be P2 as well, right? Yeah. I made that mistake. So, okay, let me save. Okay, $P2. No, it should be O. And this is what, okay, now I got it. So you see now the different ways we have discussed with the use of array object. Most of the time, you can use the way you like it, but more compact when it comes to use of arrays, right? Then finally, I would like to discuss how we use for each to access these items, right? So with Php array, let me put it in the same. So if I go back to the coding again, right? So here we have defined it like this. Copy here. I will put this is one value. Now after that, let's try to put everything. Yes. So here what I'm going to do is I'm going to access each individual item at a time. So that means the first copier, second injet, then laser and photo. You don't have to specify any numerical values here, right? If that is the case, if I rerun, you will get the output like this. This is the first, for the first one. So the likewise, you can do the same for associative arrays as well. That code also I have given. So you can have a for each for the, we can put the for each. So here we have, let me put dot br for each. If I put it in this way, let me save it. So we'll get the output like this. So here what we will get is copier and inject the value. So here we have the indexes. So that's how we will make use of for each there. And the last one is use of the same thing, but using list and each. Let me copy that one and run and discuss. So the same thing we will use in using while loop and use of list and each. If I save it and if I rerun it, yes, we'll get the same. Right. Okay. I think that's all I have for today to discuss on, what we have discussed so far, right? And next week, we will have the last lecture and hopefully we are going to work on the database stuff and basically basic manipulations I will discuss. And then also some of the concerns when you store data and security concerns in web application. We very briefly we are going to discuss in the last lecture. So having said that, I'll finish for today. Thanks.